This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 39, looking at Jessica Jones, season 1, episode 9, aka Sin Bin. Welcome back, Defenders, to this episode of Defenders TV Podcast, episode 39, where we take a look at the Jessica Jones episode, aka Sin Bin. And we are here in our hermetically sealed podcast chamber, waiting to be interrogated by you, the listener. I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your other hosts, Derek.
And rounding out the group, I'm Chris. Help me, they don't actually let me out of here during the weekend. I stay in here.
Where's that red button?
This room's getting pretty stinky with being hermetically sealed and 3 of us inside. That's not good.
Absolutely.
I watched.
I wish I had cooling water around my feet at the moment.
But then they'd start to prune, wouldn't they?
They would prune.
Did anyone else notice how his suit stayed pretty well unwrinkled throughout that episode?
You'd think it would probably get a bit wet and crinkly.
No.
But also, remember, prunes lead to the dark side. Anyway, I think with that, it's just to remind everyone that you can find us on defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes or search for us with any other good podcast catchers such as Podcast Addict, Beyond Pod, Player FM, or indeed Stitcher.
And you can also find our podcast over on flickeringmyth.com, which provides us loads of our geeky topics and news that we talk about as well. If you want to send us some feedback, just email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter at DefendersCast, or you can find our group over on Facebook. Just search for Defenders TV Podcast. Lots of discussion going on over there. Some kind of polls and some discussion about the news and upcoming Marvel projects as well. So just go find us and join the group, and we will approve you to pop on into the Facebook group.
Yeah, and it's just to remind everyone that there will be spoilers here on out in relation to the episode and our discussion. And of course, we will take our 5 best points or maybe worst points of each episode and discuss them through. But Derek, who was the writer and director on this episode?
Turning it around on me there.
I am.
I like it. So this episode 9 of Jessica Jones, aka Sin Bin, was written by Jamie King and Dana Baratta. Dana Baratta wrote episode 5 of Jessica Jones, which was aka The Sandwich Saved Me, one of my favourites so far. Jamie King's one of the staff writers, or one of the writers within the team of Jessica Jones writers. This episode was directed by John Dahl. John Dahl is another alum of Dexter, directing 13 episodes of Dexter. We spoke about one of the writers who'd done about 9 episodes of Dexter, who wrote last week's episode. And this is another alum formerly working with the future head of Iron Fist. So yeah, quite interesting that they're taking from this pool of writers for Jessica Jones.
Yeah, as Iron Fist gradually infiltrates into the world of Marvel Netflix.
Absolutely. John, do you want to tell us what we got in this episode?
Sure. After the explosion outside Jessica's childhood home, Simpson is rushed to hospital, requesting to be seen by a Dr. Kaslov in a last-ditch hope to save him from his injuries. As he begins to respond to the doctor's treatment, he is told to follow a course of red, white and blue medication that may prove to be kill or cure for the former Special Ops soldier. Meanwhile, Jessica has Kilgrave secured in the hermetically sealed chamber located on the edge of the city, as she interrogates him to extract a confession for the murder of Hope's parents and to provide evidence for mind control. As she becomes more desperate for answers, her techniques are called into question by Hogarth, who seems to have designs on Kilgrave's abilities for her own ends. However, as more details of Kilgrave's past emerge from the videotape, Jessica and Trish follow another lead that they hope will be more persuasive: Kilgrave's parents. But just when Jessica has Kilgrave right where she wants him, Hogarth's involvement complicates the situation. As Jessica's plans are thrown into a bloody turmoil, a tiny fragment of realization and hope is discovered.
Very interesting. Lovely summary you have there.
This is probably what I would say is one of those pivotal episodes of the show where a lot of strands are tied up and a lot of new stuff seems to be happening in this episode. Tons going on.
Too much.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not going to spoil my later points.
Sensory overload for you, Chris?
Sensory overload. Just Just that is the epitome of my feeling is how I'm vocalizing it. It's just hate is a strong word.
Okay.
Dislike is too weak. This episode did not do it for me.
Interesting.
But at the same time, closing up all those arcs, opening new ones, did it for me.
Right.
I don't know what it was. I think it was the too many cooks in the kitchen, perhaps. Not from a writer perspective, perhaps just too many thread lines, plot lines, trying to... Again, we've got 4 hours left. That's it. So they're trying to close off certain ones that just probably you didn't need, potentially closing certain other ones off too early to close off, perhaps. And then additionally, you've got just filler. Where in an episode where you had too much already, so why would you place filler?
Right.
So I just, some of it,
Interesting.
I definitely think there's a lot of exposition. Definitely.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, not necessarily filler, an awful lot of exposition. Basil exposition does spring to mind here. There's an awful lot of information being thrown around. And part of me wondered whether... I thought this, again, was a really good episode. Again, it was just pacing for me, and it was a personal thing. It was potentially with the parents, maybe too soon. I would have liked to have seen Kilgrave squirm. I enjoyed that interrogation, that boundary pushing that, Jessica was doing, where in a sense she becomes maybe the questionable person there. I love the duplicitous nature of Hogarth again in this episode, and how sort of the things that sprung to mind to her previously, kind of about using his abilities, or wouldn't that be great, kind of started to sort of dawn on her in regard to her current situation. But I do think that for me, some of the things just maybe happened too quickly, and others took a long time to get there. But I think it was necessary to answer some of the questions that we were asking, certainly say in our last podcast,
Absolutely.
For example. So there was a lot going on here. But again, another solid episode.
Right.
For me.
Yeah, definitely going into this episode, I was kind of questioning, would we get a lot of the questions that we had about episode 8 answered? And yeah, they answered them in spades. A lot of the discussion we had in last week's episode really came back while we were watching this episode, and really kind of struck a chord as to some of the huge things that you guys had proposed and that I'd proposed in last week's episode. Suddenly they're either flipped on their head, or answer is given, or new discoveries are made that lead into possible future episodes. So I really enjoyed that. But before we steal every point that each other has to make, who wants to kick us off? John, do you want to give us your first point?
Yes, I will. Basically, I like the fact that it answered the question, which was Kilgrave is a crazy psychopath. To me, he isn't the person who is trying to rehabilitate himself or make himself a better person. He is in it for himself. I think at any opportunity, he will look to better himself in all manners of horrible ways. And for me, I think that became apparent here, just purely by the fact that even though there were questions for me with Jessica's treatment of him as a prisoner, I do think that he really ultimately proved himself in his actions and eventual escape from the hermetically sealed chamber to be every bit as in it for him and him only. And he's probably now realized that Jessica really doesn't want anything to do with him. And so he may give that up. He may move past that quite quickly. And I think he has a sociopathic or psychopathic tendency there, absolutely. So that for me was the biggest thing here, to just see him be manipulative. I mean, even with regards to Jessica's punch down of him, which was hugely brutal, he knew what to do to be cast as the victim in the footage. He knew and wanted and sought to get under the skin and into the mind of Hogarth so that she may let him out. And then finally, I suppose when all hope of a reasonable escape is lost, he will take that big opportunity like we saw at the end in relation to coming face to face with his parents and escaping that way. So even though he was on the back foot, he still showed cunning, arrogance, and essentially a self-centered nature for Kilgrave and Kilgrave only.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good to see.
For me, this actually, I was a bit disappointed. With last episode, we were given this insightful kind of view into Kilgrave in that you wanted to have empathy for the character. I wanted them to continue that a bit more. They had have strung it out for at least another hour. That would have just given it a bit more of an emotional wrenching when they showed him now to be the way he was.
Yeah.
So we basically had 1 hour out of 13 where he was somewhat cool. Not cool, sorry, excuse me. Not somewhat cool, but more you empathize with his possible reasoning and thought process and who he might become and why he became the way he did. Within the first 5 minutes of this episode, you saw, as John said, the man he is, the psychopath, the sycophant, the psychotic, kind of easily manipulative man. It was great to see the character brought back, and it was who he was, and that is who that character is now. But I was like, if they just could have played that thread, that plot line just another, because for literally, as I said, for the first maybe 4 minutes of the episode, you saw Jessica torture him with the video. And I was like, that would be brilliant. So you see this breakdown emotion. It would have been like almost that birth of what we saw Wilson Fisk in the last episode, the last 2 episodes of Daredevil. This was the birth of the Purple Man. So Jessica breaks him down and he snaps him too far. That would have been brilliant. So you have empathy, and then he goes batshit crazy.
Right.
But no, it was literally empathy for about 4 minutes, and then when she goes for the beatdown, then straight away, I was like, maybe he's not playing. Maybe he's like, this is Jessica going too far.
Right.
And then there's just that sneer and that whisper too. His face wasn't in the camera. It was like, no, it's a big game.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. And I think I slightly spoke about this on last week's episode as well. I love that, must admit, because essentially they are telling you don't have empathy with this guy. He's raped women multiple times. The writers of the show are very much saying, we're not going to do this thing where we go, his parents caused this, and that's why he's the way he is. Jessica even called it out last episode. They're very much kind of going, look what he does when he's in any situation, regardless of the power or not, he's going to manipulate it. He's looking into the camera. He's presenting everything from, if you're watching this footage, Jessica is abusing him. Jessica's beating him, using her superpowers on him. You hold all the power here, kind of thing. All of that stuff is all showing that he is a reprehensible character. He's got no good empathetic feelings that you can have towards him, or no good pieces about him like Wilson Fisk that you can feel for him. Remember, by this stage in Daredevil, we'd met Vanessa. We'd understood that he's doing things for the love of a good woman, that he's doing things for the love of his city for Wilson Fisk in Daredevil. By this stage, we have no idea why Kilgrave is doing what he's doing, other than it's everything for himself. And this is another episode just layering on those elements of Kilgrave turning things towards his perspective and his idea and what he wants other people to believe about him. Jessica's mentioned a couple of times in this episode that he avoided being in front of cameras since this one footage of him showing weakness, essentially, when he was a child. And from then on, he's just controlled everything around him. So it's nice that he didn't just let that fall for me. That's what I like about the character, that they didn't let it just drop and make him be a whiny, snivelly guy in the corner. They're showing that he is actually controlling the situation around him.
But do you not think it would have been really interesting just to explore that for just another hour? Just to almost like layer on that. You should feel some empathy for this guy. You should.
Maybe.
And because it didn't really touch you. Just into much it touched myself and John, because we discussed it more. You didn't feel as much empathy in the last episode.
No.
But do you not think if they had layered another hour just where you're like, oh, maybe I can maybe it's his product.
It's
of
interesting.
what-
It probably-
and then ripped it away.
It probably does say a lot about me, I must say.
No soul.
Yeah, something like that. But I think I always hear these stories of people justifying their actions. There's always someone's got a bad story of something in their past that caused them to do X, Y, and Z. And I loved Jessica calling out in episode 8 that she doesn't believe this bull that people sell her, that because you're mistreated as a child, therefore X equals Y, and you are a killer because of it, or you are a rapist because of it. She called it out. I believe that character completely, because that's my reaction to a lot of people like this. Just because you're abused as a child or beaten as a child does not necessarily mean you must turn into a bad guy. He's made loads of decisions throughout his life and has become that. And I like that they're exploring that type of character rather than going, like, I suppose, rather than having the cliche of every Marvel comic, which is, this is how you are created as a bad guy because you've had a bad life to start with, therefore you're a bad guy. If you didn't have a bad life to start with, you're a good guy. Look at Captain America. He lost his parents. He's an orphan too. And he becomes Steve Rogers, Captain America. He doesn't turn to the bad side, has never had that thought cross his mind. And I love that he's not, doesn't come from a great past and he's ended off in a great way. Whereas this character Kilgrave has every opportunity to say it's all because of them, but I don't believe it. I like they're exploring that.
I agree with you. No, agree. If they had it on the trope, it would have been terrible. But I just mean play one more. Like, if they had to just literally, because they did. They flipped it back that no, he's just an evil, reprehensible type of character.
Yeah.
I like that, and that makes the character.
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing about this episode, which when it finished, I think I immediately said, oh, that big fight scene at the end saved it for me. And then, I mean, I thought back on it more, and there's an awful lot that I like here, and I think it was merely a pacing issue. And I think, like yourself, Chris, I really wanted to see them explore that because they were turning the tables on him, and they were exploring sort of, Jessica, the person who has been vulnerable. She's the one that's been controlled by him, now in full control of him, ultimately. But you see him turn, and I like that. And you see him actually trying to control the situation. He's always watching, he's looking. But at the same time, there's a real darkness here to Jessica and what she's doing. As you say, putting the tape onto the screen, I mean, that just screams of torture. Having the water floor, the electrical shock treatment, the fact that he can't hear anything, and if he speaks, there's no reaction because there is a slight sensory deprivation going on there as well. So this is actually really quite dark, and it's all, as Hogarth says, as Detective Clemens says, it is all beyond the law, and actually is only making him potentially come off better in the light of the law if this ever gets to a court.
Especially with how he's playing in front of the camera as well,
Exactly.
just adding to it.
So I like his then Machiavellian side where where he's slightly off camera or he's behind one of the metal trusses where he, suddenly just starts to, do the wink and the knowing smile and say, look, you're not going to get this out of me. And I think that was really, really good. And I think, again, the only other aspect of pacing for me, and I'm kind of want to go into my second point here, I know, but I know you two haven't done any points yet, so I won't.
I have a point that you've just brought up.
So I won't. But what I would say is that the introduction of the parents, really good. I loved that. I just wish it was in the next episode.
Interesting. My point is actually brought up from something that you've said there, which is the torture by Jessica of Kilgrave. Really, really stood out to me how much like A Clockwork Orange, the Stanley Kubrick movie.
Definitely.
Really, really stood out to me. And what my point is comes from that, because I instantly thought of that. It really felt like that scene where the main character of Alex is being held to made watch really horrible videos that are tormenting him. And then I looked it up. John Dahl, the director of this episode, has gone on record in the past, about 4 or 5 years ago, talking about his inspirations and what led him to become a director. I'm going to read a little bit of his choice for that, right? And his choice was Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. What he said about it was, this film captured my imagination so much. It was the first film that I saw that made me realize that somebody has to make this type of stuff. Somebody has to build those sets. Somebody has to paint those paintings. All of a sudden it became accessible. The movie was so compelling and interesting to me on so many levels. The one thing that struck me is that somebody made that movie. Now that somebody, someday possibly I could make it. So this is John Dahl's reflection of Clockwork Orange. It's very much what he chose to do. This scene is absolutely taken from Stanley Kubrick's, and I think he did a great job to actually make that stand out in a TV show. He's replicated a classic image and brought it into a TV show, which is again a Marvel Comics TV show. Well done, John Dahl. Really impressed with that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, if they had done a bit more of that torture, he got close. Again, it's that disconnect we have in this episode. My feeling is that they wanted to cram in so much. Like that torture scene, I'm assuming that if we ever get an extended deleted scenes bit, there's more in there.
Really?
Yeah. I'd say, because there was that bit where he curls up and the video's playing in the background. Mm-hmm. Like, that's I've seen too much of this video.
Yeah.
Or where Jessica's talking to him and then puts it back on, then fast forwards it, then puts it back on. Mm-hmm. Like that. So it's like that, the old school torture you'd hear about in Clockwork Orange or in the Gulf War and all that kind of stuff, where they're waterboarding and all this crazy psycho kind of psychological warfare.
Yeah.
I just think there was probably more of it in this Left-Hand Cutting Room Floor. Because I just think it was a lovely homage. Uh-huh. But I think if they had have, blared the music, blared the sound over, turned it up so loud that him crying, that would have made it more emotional.
I love that the choice is given. Trish gives the choice to Jessica. Why can't we just walk out of here? He's sealed in there. He could die in there for what either of us care. Why don't you just play out that over and over again, leave it on a loop and walk out of here? Nobody even knows he's here. We're gone. I love that that's a choice given to Jessica. She's a hero, so she says no. She wants to get the confession out of there.
Is she a hero or an anti-hero at the moment?
Well, she wants to get the confession out of him to save Hope. That's her job. That's the only thing she's looking for. Yeah, a bit of an anti-hero because she's a strong drinker and she'll kick the hell out of anybody that takes on one of her mates, basically. That's all we've seen her do. But she is a hero. She's supposed to be the hero of this show, or the heroine of this show, definitely. So I do I think they're doing something very different with this show. They absolutely probably could have written it that we empathize with Kilgrave, as we talked about a moment ago. They could have written it that way. They did for Daredevil overall. Marvel did that and made us empathize with Wilson Fisk until the final episode. But I like that they're taking a different tack on it. But that's, again...
Yeah, no, it's tomatoes. I think it really is. Just
nice quote from the episode, Chris.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to give us your first point?
I'm going to speak about the one and only red, white and blue Patriot soldier, Mr. Nuke, Mr. Frank Simpson. Oh, excuse me, sorry, Will Simpson. Oh, Officer Simpson. I'm so sorry. So yeah, no, I want to talk about this. This was the confirmation of 9 episodes worth of content where we've been speculating, is he Indy? Is he Nuke? Isn't he Nuke? We're still not 100%, but he gets destroyed. He's bleeding. He had a massive chunk of glass in his abdomen, and then less than 6, because it was more night when he got bombed. It's now morning. He's still dying, and now by mid-afternoon, evening, he's up and quite healed.
Yeah.
So then what we get is Dr. Kozlov, who I can't find a kind of counterpart in the Marvel universe. So I think this was either, we need a Russian-sounding name doctor. Quickly, use this one. Yeah. There is a Dr. Kozlov in Amazing Strange Tales, which was obviously a production of Marvel's back in the day. But nothing. No connection to, this was before superheroes. Yeah. It was a Strange Tales piece. And basically that discussion by Officer Simpson going, I want back in. So there is this program, this secret program running in the background that we haven't heard about yet very much. And something about Damascus happened.
Yeah.
So I want to know more about that.
Absolutely.
That was a huge question left open. The big confirmation we got in this episode was about the pills. Where we had red pills to get you going, 2 white pills to even you out, and a blue pill to bring you down.
Yeah.
Red, white, and blue. It is the flag. And there is the very last part where we see Simpson and where the doctor is saying this is what the pills are and leaves the 3 pills. And Officer Simpson goes, I want more red. And he goes, no, not after Damascus.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore. And then Will chugs a load of red. And that is what Nuke is known for.
Yeah.
He just keeps taking the red pills.
I know. I'm really wondering, have we missed something? Is there something in Iron Man 3 that has a reference to Damascus because of all the former guys in the army? Is there something there that we're missing?
Yeah.
Please, if you know it, listeners, send in feedback to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com if there's something that we're missing here that we should know by now, because we've only got another 4 episodes left. It might be something that will be explained in another episode. But I'm definitely thinking there's some kind of program that it has created these type of guys.
And well, it's funny you should say that, because rather than thinking back, I was thinking, is Damascus going to be explained in Daredevil 2 with Frank Castle being there?
Yes.
So I was thinking more ahead rather than thinking that maybe it was an event that occurred previously. But definitely, I love this sort of development now of Nuke. Ultimately, that we've got confirmation that it's him. Whether he's called that or whatever is another matter entirely.
Yeah.
But I really did kind of like that. I mean, you saw his wounds healing really super quickly. Strange Doctor coming in, never a good sign.
And John almost mentioned Doctor Strange there.
But Strange Tales is not just another comic book there.
Absolutely. That's where Nick Fury and Doctor Strange shared a book for 12 years, wasn't it? Or 10 years, something like that. Yeah.
I have 2 final points just on Nuke. So one, I haven't said this on the show, and I made the joke there, which is about Frank Simpson. In the comic books, Nuke's name is Frank Simpson.
Right.
And I was going, well, his name's Will Simpson in this, so it's not too bad. And obviously they just didn't want to confuse it with Frank Castle coming in Daredevil.
They may just be taking off the name Frank purely because it is Frank Simpson, and because we've got a Frank Castle coming up, it may just make sense to them to take it off there. Interesting point.
Now, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole a bit.
Okay.
So everyone bear with me, right? So, he now is perhaps imbued, thanks to these pills, with some type of healing ability.
And we haven't seen any future episodes, listeners, remember, just in case Chris hits something.
Oh my God, I'm hoping this is right. Please tell me this is right. Chris was right. #Chris was right. So, he had a big problem with the way Jessica's been handling this. And as when we were discussing this theory before this podcast, I Derek, you brought it up. He has a problem with Jessica having powers.
Yes.
So he got out of this program. Obviously, he had some type of powers when he was in the war, or was part of Black Ops or something like that, which is accelerated healing. If he is Nuke, he has accelerated strength, super strength, and he's basically a rip-off Captain America when he has pills in the system.
Right, okay.
So what if he's doing this now so he can take on Jessica to get at Kilgrave?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
So that's the bit. It's kind of like, okay, Jessica's going to stand in my way. I want to kill Kilgrave, but she's going to stand in my way. So I need to be on level with her. So are we up for this big 3-way fight?
A super battle.
A super battle,
yes,
if you will.
Yes.
A Winter Soldier, Captain America-esque battle
royale.
Absolutely. And that would make sense with his increasing obsession that he's almost kind of shunned Trish by sort of episode 7 and 8. They're not sleeping together, he's hardly round, whereas at the first phone calls. The first couple of episodes where they're together, he can't get from out of the apartment, basically, or the bedroom, or between the sheets. So I mean, there's his attitude has changed with that exposure to Kilgrave and wanting to sort of even up the playing field after what happened to him. So that would all fit into this. This is the only way he can do it, because he now knows that there's a superhero in between him and his target. And he's a military man, so he's just got target, stay on target.
And I think one of the bits we didn't mention in episode 8 was his discussion with Trish, where he does say, I'm not leaving her alone. Jessica can take care of herself. She's got powers. We don't. I'm stepping out of her way. And that's where I got the idea that potentially he's now starting to get really annoyed with the fact that he doesn't have powers. Jessica does. And she's telling him not to kill Kilgrave. So yeah, potentially he is now developing those powers so that he can push Jessica aside and get at Kilgrave. Really
yeah, no, I think that would be a great one. So we have a superhero showdown where they fight it off. Because we haven't really had that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, unless we had a Luke Jessica fight, which we got for. We didn't get a fight.
We got a bit of a proof of Jessica of Luke's powers and of Jessica's powers, but they weren't fighting.
No, there was no punches thrown.
No punches back and forth.
It was just kind of pushes.
It was
like,
a physical argument, but with super strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think it was lover's tip, if we want to call it that.
Well, he did kill his wife, so maybe not that much of a lover's tip.
Who here hasn't killed someone's wife?
Me.
Just me then.
Really good catches, Chris.
That's just my point.
When I saw the red, white, and blue pills, all I was thinking of, we have Trinity in this show. You just went down the rabbit hole there. Is someone going to go down the rabbit hole? Are we going to take the red pill or the blue pill? I thought it was totally a reference to the Matrix, and then Chris pointed out the red, white, and blue pills. Well done. Good catch.
Thank you.
John, do you want to give us your next point?
Yeah, we are introduced to Albert and Louise Thompson, Kilgrave's parents, and they're British. I know, exactly. Woohoo! They were at the University of Manchester.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Somebody else was at the University of Manchester, weren't they?
Yes. So all good. Rutherford, and then me.
Yay, there you
go. So we're introduced to them, and there's kind of 2 points here. First of all, we get to learn about why there was all the rugby. I think we had mentioned that previously, that it was strange seeing rugby on the TV screen for an American show. But we do find that Eric Brentford is one of Kilgrave's heroes, or childhood heroes. He's a rugby player. This is called sin bin, which rugby union does have, and as does hockey, I believe. Yep. So there's all this kind of connection to previous little bits and bobs that occurred throughout the episode that I think we had looked at or at least noted previously. So that was quite good. But
yeah, I love those ties back to stuff that happened in episode 1 and 2 that were just throwaway stuff. I think we mentioned it because we thought it was a soccer game originally in episode 2. It turned out to be a rugby match when we were watching it. But I love those little touches. And again, it's kind of nice because that's much more of a non-London sport. So there is much more of a connection to a very different part of the UK that we don't normally see in American productions, particularly, that we're actually seeing a bit more outside of the normal characters based in London.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought that was really good. But I think as well, the other really good thing about this introduction is that they essentially tell an alternate story as to what happened. And it's kind of coming back to this point of this interrogation. You know, he is saying, and previous conversations in Jessica's old childhood home, he's saying, you know, he was experimented on by his parents. And what they are saying is that he had a neurological problem which would have killed him before he reached 10. And they were trying to save his life. But in introducing a virus to him, he is transformed into essentially this young boy of 10 years old who has got these neurological superpowers to control people's minds. And then after that, they are living in fear because they're at the whim of a 10-year-old boy with all the tantrums, the wants, and they haven't left him. They ultimately run away from him in order to save their own lives because he gets his mother to burn her face with an iron.
We've all been there.
It's real dark. So we have this alternate story, which is one that is going to be, and to me feels like it's the truth.
Yeah.
And again, it just puts Kilgrave in that light of being just horrible, really, and both a liar, but also just a torturer and a general intimidating person, even at the age of 10. And I really liked that aspect of his parents being involved by Jessica. And then, of course, it all leads to the big showdown in the tank. And I mean, it's just, I love David Tennant's portrayal here, where he becomes this like bruised and battered child, and he almost reverts back to being a child. Just the tone of his voice as he's speaking to his mum, seeing his expression as he sees his parents for the first time. I absolutely thought that was like really amazing acting, actually, from David Tennant. One of the big questions from it for me is that he actually seems genuine about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she pulls the scissors out and stabs him. And so if his mum hadn't pulled the scissors, would it have gone a different way? It was all to get him to show and prove his mind control, his powers on tape. And I must say, I just thought that was a really great scene. And it was just really frantic and tense by the end of it, with Kilgrave escaping. But all of that I just thought was really good. I just loved how David Tennant just changed and almost reverted to being a kid again. And again, it would have been interesting to see if the scissors hadn't been involved, what would have happened. It's not to say he would have changed, but obviously that accelerated everything to a pretty horrific conclusion.
You used a word there, and that's my problem. Accelerated.
Right.
Just again, a fantastic scene. Like, David Tennant deserves some kind of. They won't give David Tennant an Emmy, or that's not Oscar material, but it's like Emmy material.
Right.
For this Netflix, similar to the House of Cards winning Emmys. Like, David Tennant portrayal here was fantastic.
Absolutely.
He slipped between 3 different personas within one episode, within one scene of a damaged child, an angry child, and then a malicious psychopath.
Absolutely.
At the end, what was it? Take those scissors and stab yourself for every year you have left me.
Yeah.
Like, that was just brilliant.
Absolutely.
But again, it just felt to me, and I'm probably on my own on this, and I just don't understand why I'm getting this feverish annoyance with it. It just felt rushed.
I don't think you're alone. I would say other people have had those opinions, and I suppose, given that we only have 4 episodes left, maybe if we cracked on and watched the next 2 or 3 episodes back to back, maybe this would have faded a little bit, because I don't know what's coming. I really don't by the end of this episode. We know that that Jessica's now on the warpath, going to now go and find Kilgrave. Kilgrave is now released in the city, but I really don't know what that means for another 4 episodes. What I did like in this particular scene is the little tick of Kilgrave's dad, of Kevin's dad, which gives away the fact that they're going to kill him. He essentially says, "You used to tell us what to do. You used to tell us when to piss." And when he says that, you're going, all right, that's it. That's it. This is over. They are not in there to help him out at all. They're there to take him out, which I thought was a nice little touch, just in case, because I do think it's still pretty shocking that his mother, who seems pretty weak and has come across as quite weak in the fact they just ran away and left him to his own devices at 10, but that she's the one that's going to take him out, probably because Kilgrave also thinks she's weak and she can get closer to him than anybody else could.
But that's it. Were they trying to take him out or trying to prove his mind control? Because you can't take him out, because then you can't prove his mind control.
You're right.
So the idea was to stab.
Yes, but not kill.
But not kill.
Yes.
She and the shoulder.
Yeah. And then that wasn't caught on camera. And so then it was, Jessica was waiting and waiting until he basically then said, "Now stab yourself for every year you were missing from my life." Basically.
Yeah.
And so she's having to hold off from pushing that red button because they had missed that first bit where he tells her to pick up the scissors.
That's it. Yes.
Because I think, again, one of the frames for the windows of this chamber is in the way.
Yeah.
It was badly positioned by camera work by Jessica. But
absolutely.
And the officer couldn't see it either, which was the other important part, yeah.
And so then it obviously unfortunately goes the way it does.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was always going to be risky. The one thing is I didn't suddenly understand why the red button wasn't working. It had obviously worked twice beforehand. One on Kilgrave to show this is what happens if Kevin's a naughty boy. And then the other time where Trish pushes it to show Jessica, calm down. You know, I didn't understand why all of a sudden there was an electrical spark. I may have missed something whilst I was writing a note, but...
Yeah, it was because Hogarth. Because Hogarth went in to the room just before Jessica arrived back, she broke. I believe she's the one that broke the connection when she goes into the room.
Okay. So I missed that. Okay.
So she's the one that's caused it from not happening because she starts to listen to Kilgrave again, being the convincing mastermind, even without his powers, still gets to convince her to come into the same room as him. She knows this is wrong. Why is Hogarth getting convinced by this man? She maybe doesn't believe Jessica's version of events.
Do you think Hogarth and Kilgrave will hook up then in the next few episodes? Because when that happens, Hogarth is out of there like a flash. And then when they go out, when Jessica goes out to try and chase him down, he is gone. Yeah. Hogarth is gone. They are gone very quickly, both of them. And I'm just wondering whether, even though she was going in to try and maybe get him out, see what he was going to do, this was all part of a bigger plan, because I think she had sent on the information to Clemens as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my points. It was about Hogarth, essentially. Because of the fantastic line from Kilgrave, it is him looking at her going, remember, these powers of persuasion I have can right any wrong and can make any stubborn problems disappear. And that is now speaking to Hogarth. What we get in this episode is essentially Hogarth's decision that she needs to get rid of Wendy at all costs. And that's why she's going in to meet Kilgrave to see if he can now help her. This is it. This is Hogarth is now turning to the dark side and taking on an apprentice. And that apprentice happens to be Kilgrave. And like we know, the apprentice will kill the master. He's going to now use Hogarth for some ill intent that he has. So, yeah, love it.
You've been forgetting something. Sorry, I had to put in.
Mm-hmm.
What did she ask to be kept and then sent somewhere?
I don't know.
The dead fetus.
The dead fetus.
Oh, yes, of course.
So she, we assumed, I think during the podcast, we're talking about what could she want with this?
Yeah.
The powers of persuasion.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
When a fetus is dead, you have to work on it, blah, blah. What's better than that?
Mm-hmm.
The real thing.
Yeah, so she was thinking about extracting that virus that was used to create Kilgrave, and now she has the real Kilgrave. Yeah. Potentially. Now, I don't think he would be on a leash, though. That's the thing. I don't think she realizes. You don't need him on a leash.
You just literally need to gag him. You just need to gag him and then...
and then point him at the...
And then just, experiment on him, get his powers.
Right. Interesting. I don't know whether she should be trusting him as much as she is. As I said, she was about to step into the room when Jessica arrived back. She was pretty close to getting Kilgraved, I suppose.
But I wonder whether we're
going to... corpsed.
But I wonder whether we're going to see a flashback. Some conversation that we've not seen in this episode, where this is all planned out for them to escape. Definitely. Perhaps, you could even argue if Kilgrave doesn't yet know, he might be thinking, well, here's someone who is willing to travel the dark path. So it could be that, Hogarth ultimately comes to the dark side, is willing to work with Kilgrave, and maybe Kilgrave finally finds this companion in Hogarth, even though it's for different reasons.
Yeah, maybe. We talked about the Marvel team-up where we had a villain and a superhero team-up in episode 8, which you would usually see in Marvel. Of course, you could have the supervillain team-up, and that supervillain team-up is Hogarth and Kilgrave. But what could she possibly hold over him for him not to use the powers on her? That's what I'm really intrigued about. So let's see how that plays out in another episode.
And on that segue, I'm going to bring up my point.
The Jones way.
A Jones way, if you will. We're forgetting about a kind of part that, again, another one that got lost because it just brushed off, is that Kevin's not the only kid on this video, on this USB drive.
Absolutely.
We saw at least 5 other kids. An Asian child with a pie symbol almost looking, being carved into or stitched into his chest. A girl with no hands. legs in another girl or boy with legs in braces with kind of spikes, pins going through. There's a USB stick full of children being experimented on.
Yes, yeah.
And okay, I'm clutching a straw. Well, first of all, we know nothing about that. Why is Kevin Thompson's and the Thompson family, Mr. Kilgrave, video on this USB stick?
Yeah.
What is Reva's connection?
Yes, that's the big one for me.
That's that's huge. Well, why was it buried under concrete that only Jessica had to hack away at?
Yeah. Like, we do know from episode 3 that Reva left a message for her husband, Luke Cage, that there is something buried that he needs to find underneath the building. He goes there and it's gone. So we know that was his story before he ever met Jessica. But we don't know why Reva's connected to it at all. Yeah. We think it might be something to do with the company she worked for potentially or something like that. But
and then we have Hogarth working on getting a fetus. She's a lawyer. She's probably representing someone.
Potentially, yeah.
A company that goes after all this stuff. That was my point from the previous point, which was perhaps they want the original sample,
right,
which is Kilgrave.
Very interesting, yeah.
And putting it in. Children experiments on children in the Marvel Universe has one huge hero out of it, which is Spider-Woman.
Right.
Jessica Drew, the triple agent now. Is she double? Four-time agent?
She's somewhere there.
She's somewhere. She's an agent of an agent of an agent of Hydra, of S.H.I.E.L.D. of S.H.I.E.L.D.
She's
Hydra.
certainly spun a web of lies over her time in the Marvel Universe.
Clank. So this is just a point where I was just again, another one that just is, unless we get it answered, is one that's just going to be, oh yeah, there was
yeah.
And I literally meant to mumble that because it was that quickly kind of forgotten about.
Brushed over.
No one, they haven't mentioned the other kids. As soon as we knew that the Thompsons were involved, it was like, oh yeah, unless the Thompsons can speak Chinese, which is quite possible, but I think you'd hear the English twang on the Chinese being spoken.
Yeah.
We didn't get that. And what was the pi symbol? And why were the kids missing their arms?
I do love that Kilgrave answers it pretty quickly and just goes, well, I was too busy looking for my crazy parents than checking out for some useless kids on the other side of the world. And he says that he didn't even investigate it. I'm not sure if that's true. What I definitely love about this scene is, once again, we have a podcast, we record and talk about it, maybe Kilgrave closed the computer so that Jessica didn't see the other stuff that was on there. Maybe it did have more information about him that he didn't want her to see. It wasn't information about him. It was information about all these other kids around the world that were being experimented on, that it wasn't just to do with Kilgrave, which I thought was really interesting. Good point last time, John.
Yeah, and there's potentially here, bigger scheme at play here. Experimentation, we've seen Hydra doing it. I'm thinking, is there something, it's a global thing, maybe it links into, obviously, we hear some Chinese, that's one of the most distinct parts of that tape, and with the pi symbol, I can't actually think if anything relates to Iron Fist there or anything like that. My mind's blank on that.
It looked like a pi. It was a top line squiggle and then two lines parallel underneath.
It's kind of like a mathematical genius or something, having all the mathematical symbols carved into them. I don't know, but
you would write great comics.
This
for nerds.
I am math boy. Hold on, while I carve. Look, and then pi 3.14 blah blah.
I am geography boy.
Okay, maybe not so great.
Geographers are here to save the world.
Maybe you wouldn't write.
There are actually hoodies with that on.
They're here to save the world.
Yeah.
What? One glacial erosion at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Helping save the world from climate change.
It's a science, people. It's a science.
But yeah, there's some bigger organisation at play here, and of course, Hydra, springs to mind. I'm very much aware of Hydra's involvement against the Iron Fist, and this idea of them looking for that mystical element and otherworldly thing. And obviously what we've seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are these other worlds, other cities. We do have this notion in the Immortal Iron Fist of the 7 kingdoms of heaven, but you always have in, the yin and the yang, the balance here, the dark side and all this kind of thing. And maybe that this would link in with Hydra. Certainly Hydra present in the Immortal Iron Fist storyline. So this experimental program against kids would fit with their remit. We see that with Von Strucker, with Scarlet Witch, and
all the way back to Red Skull and Captain America: The First Avenger was all about doing experiments on people.
Exactly.
That's why Bucky was captured. That's why he became the Winter Soldier. There's all those experiments over years.
All
and years.
of this is really interesting about whether it may tie in or link with the Iron Fist in some way. So that I'm intrigued to see.
I don't think they're going to introduce Hydra. It's too early.
Not yet.
No. It will be a faceless corporation.
It could be
anything.
It could be.
Well, no. I think it is Hydra. It will be the big evil greens with their tentacles everywhere. I just think we haven't had Hydra in Daredevil. Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2 is more fantastical. The films are the films. We get Easter egg touches and comments and linkages, and we know this is after the events of Ultron. Well, sorry, no, we know this is after the event of the Avengers 1. We don't know if it's before or after Ant-Man or Ultron.
But it didn't start off like that. It was very much a spy thriller with this computer hacker coming on and, the spy organization, and it's increasingly gone off-world.
Yeah.
The only thing slightly extraordinary was the fact that obviously Agent Coulson was alive and not dead, and that kind of being explained.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think it's, if we imagine that the Netflix series is the max run, it is the more dirty, deep. It's gritty. It's noir. It's all that kind of stuff. I don't think having the Hydra goons in just yet.
But think how great Hydra would be in the Netflix world.
Yeah.
They would be Nazis on steroids.
I love that. Nice.
Nazis on steroids. That's the name of the byline for this episode.
But they would be evil, bloody, uncompromising, because that's what this world is. It'll be great.
If I could just weigh in the discussion, being the S.H.I.E.L.D. fanatic that I am, I don't think they're going to use Hydra in this show, because I just think it'll be too confusing for people. We've seen Hydra being used in all the Captain America movies. We've seen them all the way through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for 3 seasons. Sticking them in here, like the way they do in the comics as villains. The reason why they're used so often in the comics is because people kind of forget about Hydra. People who didn't read S.H.I.E.L.D. comics, that kind of stuff, they don't really remember Hydra. They just kind of look at them as villains, but they don't really remember them. You can't really take them because they are so memorable in the movies. They've become such a central part of the universe of those type of shows that you'd really have to create a brand new arm of Hydra and use them in Iron Fist, maybe.
But in the Immortal Iron Fist, sorry to come back to the Immortal Iron Fist, but Hydra is introduced as a faceless business corporation trying to take and wrestle control of the Rand Corporation.
Yeah.
It could be done like that.
Oh, I agree. It could be done, but I wonder if they want to try and use a different organization, just because the movie universe is a lot smaller overall than the Marvel comics universe. But I like the idea of AIM. It's time to bring him in.
Yeah, they could. But then
I know they've used them in Iron Man 3 already, but I like the idea of bringing them back in again.
Or it could just ultimately be a faceless corporation. I mean, they've brought in the Hand and that kind of organization. I mean, Red Ninjas, fantastic, but Green Hydra agents?
Or maybe it's just the Hand. Good catch, John. Good catch.
Yeah, or it's just the Hand.
Or it's just Fisk. Fisk is aware of, or the Kingpin and his organization now are aware of superheroes, and they're powered, and they're like, well, he never said he had scruples anymore about experimenting on people. He doesn't even need to know. He just go find me super-powered people.
Yeah.
And then this little arm goes, well, we could just start...
We've been experimenting on them for 20 years or something, or 30 years. Yeah, maybe it's that.
It's going to be like that kind of... It's like they knew these powers right there since the 60s, since Captain America.
And he wants Kilgrave to help Hogarth get him out of prison.
Look at this. Look at the connection.
Down the rabbit hole.
John, do you want to give us your final point?
Speaking of tentacles and the Hand, we have Pamela the Tease here. Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that Pam obviously had learned a lot from Hogarth. She's using a position of power. She's really trying to expose Hogarth to either real or perceived frailties that she would then fight against in order to get back, ultimately physical with Pam. Pam is saying, everything, this is off limits until you sort yourself out, you get your ex out of the picture, and you start to be the person with power, with confidence that I fell in love with. Yeah. I really just thought this was a fantastic scene between the two ladies, and it's you normally see so much men having this power over women. Would be frequented on the screen so often. Yeah. And here you have then this within a homosexual relationship. And that's important, I think. I think this is really a great scene. And I just thought really well acted by the two actors here. Like Hogarth's expression, you just see like how she's being tempted in by Pamela, and then the shutters come down. Yeah. And it was great. I loved it. It was really kind of exceptional in my mind. I thought it just felt so correct for Hogarth's character to feel and look so dejected when Pamela essentially shuts her off from any kind of physical relationship until she's back on top.
And I actually agree. It was in a very red-blooded American style show. I was like, this is hot. This is great. But actually going deeper, there was more. So I actually took a bit more of a different take on it. Pamela, for me, seemed very gold digger-esque, young kind of woman going, like my super successful girlfriend who was powerful and is about to lose her money, her power, her job, her everything. I need to get this sorted now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
definitely.
And it was like, if this had been this was a unique take on a older man, younger secretary woman, the young woman, the young secretary going, you ain't getting none of this until you sort this shit out.
Yeah.
And it was like that, but it was in a very sensual, erotic scene. And it was great. It was just very good. But again, it was just a different take on it. But again, I took that rather than kind of this is a stable relationship trying to be fixed. I saw the first show of Pam being that younger gold digger who's not the dejected young woman who was about to get married and now feels sore, like can't go to the restaurant. You're going to take me to the same restaurant that you took a part of. I was like, that was not Pamela. Pamela is this conniving as Hogarth. And I was just...
They're a good match, definitely. Yeah. And I love the reaction of Carrie-Anne Moss to this. After the fact, the next person she meets is Trish and goes, why don't you go outside for some air? I can't handle another crazy woman around me right now. Which I just think is great because the other people that she deals with in her life is Wendy, who's trying to get 75% of her assets, 90% now of her assets. And as you say, Pam, who's now holding sex out. So Hogarth's just screwed right now. She's got nothing around her, which is possibly the reason why she's now thinking of using Kilgrave to sort out her problems. Yeah.
But one of the things I definitely loved about it was reminiscent to me of kind of, the relationships you would see in Wall Street, the film with Michael Douglas, that kind of power play and office relationship in such a powerful kind of area as law, or like in Wall Street stockbroking, all this kind of stuff. It kind of had echoes of that for me in this scene, and I really liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, what's your final point?
I'm going to bring up the big one. I'm going to bring up Jessica can resist him.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, what a moment.
The one we've all been waiting to talk about. We've been dancing around for a while. It was fantastic. This explains the bus scene dramatically. I think the three of us sat there and we discussed it for about 20 minutes in one of our episodes. kind of going, well, can she resist him now? Can she? Is it just the shock of killing someone? But we don't know what it was. Maybe it's when he screams the word Jessica, as he seemed to do. He elongated her name and that stopped it. We don't know. Maybe it's the bad slow-mo time happens and he... No, I'm obviously joking. That's the Matrix as well. No, it was a fantastic revelation.
Yeah.
That was the one part of this episode where I was like, thumbs up, nope, waiting for this. That escape scene, and as I was wondering what the slow-mo part was, because you kind of, when he said, release me, and she didn't, and then I was like, then they replayed the scene again,
yes,
and it was her still holding on to him. I was like, and the only bit, and again, this was from the director, John Dahl, showing a great piece of cinematography, in that it was the realization on Kristen Ritter's face.
Ah, yeah, absolutely.
And that's why it was slowed.
Yeah.
You could see that she was like, I'm about to let him go. Why haven't I let him go? I haven't let him go.
Yeah.
And it was just like those three emotions, slow mode.
Beautifully played.
Beautifully shot. That for me was a top class moment.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. The breakout scene itself was kind of my final point. I love how this is played out because I think we talked about the pacing of the episode and that it's a little bit slower than some of the other episodes, or there's a lot going on and a lot of exposition going on. We haven't even talked about some of the things that happened in the episode. Kind of skipped over them a little bit, but the breakout scene itself is so much happening at the same time. Some kind of slow-mo elements that you talked about. There's Jessica trying to break back into the vault to save Kilgrave's parents. There's the realization that by Trish that he's going to kill the parents, so she tries to shoot him through the glass with the gun that Simpson had given her. Then, as Kilgrave walked past her, he tells her to put a bullet in her head. A fantastic moment that I was thinking, I hope she's used 6 bullets, not 5. You know,
ask yourself this part.
Exactly, reversing the Dirty Harry moment.
Yeah, and then it's the one time where she was pleased she was a bad shot.
Yeah. Exactly. And then we have the officer being told to follow Kilgrave as he pulls his own hand out of his handcuffs, leaving the wrist just being absolutely destroyed behind it. If he hadn't followed, what would have happened? Would Kilgrave have gotten away, or would Jessica have been able to hold on to him? You know, loved all the stuff that was going on at the same time. Really, really good scene.
Another piece we really just quickly skirted over, but actually should be taken into account. He now has 2 bits of Kilgrave evidence. Kilgrave goes, follow me. Remember the whole thing was, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Kilgrave goes, follow me. He rips himself, and then Kill was like, get her. And he tackled her. So he seemed alive. He obviously unconscious. But now we know maybe in the next episode he'll go, oh yeah, I fully believe.
Yes. Yeah. Potentially we now have a new person on. Yes, exactly. A new ally is exactly the word I was looking for.
I think the interesting thing as well for me on this is that even amongst all that chaos, Kilgrave has the presence of mind to essentially say to his father, again, really brutal, stab your heart out with the scissors. Obviously, Jessica then is distracted to try and prevent that, as is Trish. But again, as he's running past and out to escape, Trish put a bullet in the head, and to the officer, Clemens, follow me, even though he's handcuffed to the post.
Yeah.
Really, a great presence of mind there from Kilgrave. But that also then leads me on to some of my notes, really, for this. Is like, it was good to see Clemens introduced a bit more into this episode. You know, he's the one that tells them, we need evidence, we need footage. He's also then slightly being used by Hogarth, where he's been sent footage of the beat down by Jessica Jones on Kilgrave, and he's realised she's the crazy one.
Right.
Like, I mean, he comes in to arrest her and to put an end to it. And they have to go all rebellious on him, Trish with the gun. So I'm really glad that he kind of got a bit more involvement in this, and I can't wait to see how then he pans out and plays out with Kilgrave now that he's escaped with them.
Yeah, he's a great actor in The Wire. Really enjoyed him on that show, and I was really expecting a lot more of him, or at least to see a lot more of him. We're now at episode 9, so I'm hoping we're going to see him a lot more for the next 3 or 4 episodes.
I like the old switcheroo they did with his character on this. So the very first time you see him in the beginning of this episode, he does the terrible Lethal Weapon line. I'm 2 years away from pension. Obviously, obviously a point at, I'm only 2 years away from retirement.
Yeah.
It was like the aging black detective. And I was like, oh no, they're not going to make him like that stereotypical character. No, lovely switcheroo.
Yep.
It was like, no, he's not actually. It was obviously more of a nod than a switcheroo. I think it was a joke, an in-joke to film lovers.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was a great point. I mean, I agree. Loved him in The Wire, but never understood why he wasn't being used in the show.
Yeah.
More. And again, Officer Clemens, I thought had a larger scene in the police station scene. I was like, wow, okay, maybe they're going to make this big thing. Again, I feel this may be a cutting editing job. Maybe there's more scenes in there, like the interrogation scene could have been longer. Or that scene where Jessica and him were talking over the hot dog, like, again, slightly could be longer.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's just maybe, again, a timing issue. When, even though we go, this is a 13-hour movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, even 13-hour movies need to be cut down.
Absolutely, and I'm kind of hoping now that he's had this big scene where he's been told what to do twice by Kilgrave, as you said, that this will give us the impetus to see more of Clemens in the next 4 episodes. I'm really hoping that he now becomes a big character. I would have liked to have seen him more, just because I like the actor. I would have liked to have seen him more in previous episodes. I don't know anything about Clemens at all. I don't know who his family is. I don't know anything about his background at all. But I know the actor, and I wanted to see him more in the show.
You know he's 2 years away from a pension.
2 years away from a pension, absolutely.
And then I have just one more, which is Whiskey Watch. We see a naggin of whiskey here. She's gone from really upmarket whiskey in Trisha's apartment to back down to a naggin after she's kind of failed to get the confession out of Kilgrave. Winston Brand, never heard of it, probably is firewater. So, Whiskey Watch. She's making her way through the top shelf in the local supermarket. That is
down to the bottom shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this might be under the shelf.
So, has anyone else got any notes to wrap up?
Yeah, I've got one or two. Loved Jessica Jones at the support group. Firstly, I loved the fact that we saw Malcolm looking completely clean and sober and running the support group, but I love Jessica sitting across the table from the guy who's still complaining about losing about Kilgrave taking his leather jacket, and she just looks at him and says, "You lost a jacket, get over it," which is what you just don't do at a support group. For some reason, it reminded me of the Simpsons episode where Homer is sent to Alcoholics Anonymous, and sitting across from him is Ned Flanders saying, "I had a glass of wine and I got a bit fuzzy," and Homer's just looking at him and going, "Why are you at Alcoholics Anonymous?" kind of thing. It really did feel like Jessica had no tolerance for the people around her. And all she's there for is to find Kilgrave's mom, which I just thought was really interesting. That Malcolm obviously thinks he's taking her in and going to help her out, but this was just a purpose of Jessica's to find Kilgrave's mom. Really good one. And I wanted to really shout out to, I think it was David Wang, if I remember correctly from our previous feedback that we got, that David had called out that there is possibly something within the support group that was hidden from original sight. We knew that there was a woman in the background. We were told that the reason her face was melted was because of an iron being used on her by Kilgrave, and she hid in the background, didn't say anything, and that was all the way back in episode 4, I think it was, or 5, and now we find out that's Kilgrave's mom, and she's been in the background the whole time. Really good catch.
Yeah, I didn't even cop the shoe print on the photo. Yeah. Like that, I was like, what? Huh? Someone's a dirty face? That's literally, I was like, I was like, dirty face? No, I still don't get it. Not until the mother walked in, I went,
it's her, of course.
Her.
Of course.
That footprint on the face.
That was great. Just the background characters being so pivotal in this episode. Great.
I wonder if that had some kind of issue on the pacing for you, because they did actually hit every character this episode, I think. And I think a lot of episodes they've left some of the characters in the background, or left them, some of the major characters, they've left their storylines out. And in this episode had a huge amount of, all the characters got a moment, except for Ruben's sister, who we still haven't seen from. And still don't know whether she knows
her brother's dead. Typhoid Mary?
Typhoid Mary, possibly.
And Luke Cage.
and Luke. And Luke, who has disappeared.
We haven't seen him at all.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree, and I think we'll, in our closing statements, in closing statements of this episode, when we try and defend or not, I will get back on the pacing.
But do you have any notes for this episode?
I do,
Chris?
and it literally leads directly into your part, which was possibly the best line, I think, and I still giggle when I hear it from this episode was, and perhaps it was Malcolm's best line in this episode, which was in the support group going, we can all speak at will here, no one is controlling us.
Love that.
And it was so off the cuff, just perfect. It's like AA Anonymous kind of like just trying to say that, and you're like, oh,
No.
it's like we're cutting a bit close to the bone.
It was really good, wasn't it?
No, so it was it was a fantastic kind of closing, and I think we can close on that.
Yeah.
So, Derek, do you defend this episode of Jessica Jones?
I do defend this episode. I wanted to see Kilgrave locked up. I wanted to see what would happen when Jessica was in control of the room and was interrogating him. I got all that. But there's a twist, as there is with this show, because it's so well written. The twist is that Kilgrave's not going to be controlled by anybody else. He's not going to be pushed into a corner, regardless of how trapped he seems to be. He's going to get out of it. And I think this was so well done. We're not going to get 2 episodes of Kilgrave locked up because Kilgrave won't stay locked up for 2 episodes. He can control everything around him. I love the keep pointing it out all the way through the episode. Don't let him out. Don't go into the room. It's like the Gremlins trick, essentially. Don't feed him after midnight.
And they fed him.
And someone's
after
going to do
midnight.
it. Someone's going to do it. And this time it's Hogarth. She's the one that ruins the whole plan. And also Trish by shooting through the bulletproof, or not the bulletproof glass, but the soundproof glass, which releases Kilgrave. I love all this stuff, and I love how it played out at the end. I love the way it was put together, and seeing what seemed to be a little bit taken down a peg Kilgrave, maybe, but still in control of the area. So yeah, I defend this episode.
Chris, do you defend this episode?
Nope. I'm so sorry, listeners. And I think you hit the nail on the head when we were discussing our notes there. It's a pacing issue. You actually, and I didn't even realise that point you made, which was we literally got nearly every character in this episode.
Yeah.
It was jam-packed. It was condensed. It was 2 hours. Like I said, if this had been spread out, like, just over just 2 episodes, episode and a half of just Kilgrave in there, exploring more, giving a bit more empathy, then flipping the switch, not having every character within every 3 minutes, not trying to jam in so many questions answered and opening more questions. It just became, I'm struggling. I'm glad I wrote notes when we write this, and for our listeners, what we do is we sit down, we watch, and as we watch, the 3 of us there scribbling away in pen and paper, sometimes on a phone if we want to feel high tech and fancy, like Tony Stark. Like Tony Stark, I swear. No, but like
He'll be telling Jarvis to write his notes sometime.
someday, he will be a British butler too. But no, it was just had to be
Is
done.
that me?
Yes, you are my Jarvis. I don't know whether it's actually your voice or if it's just going to be
Hello,
you.
sir. Would you like the Aston Martin?
I would today. I think I'll go for the Porsche. No, I think that was one of the issues. It was a pacing issue. Not that it was too long, it was too short.
Right. For
me.
everything that it was covering.
For everything that it was covering.
Right.
I would love just an extra 2 to 3 minutes on every topic.
Right.
Like the final fight scene. It was almost just done in a click. I think that's where I really wanted to kind of why I can't defend this.
Right.
I think if this had been an episode and a half to 2 episodes, giving us an extra 14th episode or giving us an extra 30 minutes. Now, we don't know what's coming next.
But you can't give the unluckiest character in the Marvel Universe a show that has more than 13 episodes, can you? It has to be 13 episodes for Jessica Jones, right?
True. I didn't even think it was...
I know what you're saying, and I am expecting if there is a DVD release of this in the future, we'll get quite a lot more deleted scenes from this show than we did than we got from Daredevil. But I'm interested.
So, overall, if I was to use John's kind of rating system, this would be a 1 or a 2 for me out of all of it.
Wow.
Just because it was just the pacing. I feel I'm struggling to remember certain points already.
Right. Wow.
So I don't go this harsh. It's what we got was great, but it was just too quick, too much.
1 or 2 is a skip the episode, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then 2 or 3.
Okay.
2 or 3. It's not a skip the episode. You have to watch it, but just you won't remember it by the time you go on to the next episode.
Right. Interesting. Wow. On that bombshell, John, do you defend this episode?
I don't quite know what to say, but I am actually going to give this 4 Kozlov pills out of 5. The red one got me going, and that was the big showdown at the end. I absolutely loved it. It really did. And for me, as I said at the start, I think it saved the episode for me. It really was high paced and was a nice fitting end, I think, for that scene. Then my 2 white pills that kept me level was the fact that it did answer my questions from the previous episode. I loved how really it showed Kilgrave really being the master manipulator, even though the big shoe and the fist was on the other foot and the other wrist with Jessica Jones. I love that interrogation scene. Definitely. It was really good. I loved then seeing Simpson sort of begin to morph, and obviously a bit more background there into possibly Nuke. Whoever it is, we see his wounds healing up. I mean, that's good now that his story is starting to just progress and move on, because I think otherwise it was starting to feel a bit stayed, really, for his character. So that was good. And my 1 blue pill, which was kind of to bring me down slightly, was a pacing. And I think that I loved all the points here, absolutely, and that's why the blue pill adds towards the score. It was a pacing issue in some cases for me. I would have loved for there to have been a bit more investigation of Louise and Albert Thompson. I love the fact that they were introduced, but it all seemed immediately convenient that they had found it and that she was in the support group. I like the fact that she was hidden in plain sight. That's a good little point, but it also seems slightly convenient as well. I can accept both points there. So that was my 1 blue pill. Like, I loved the exposition, the big fight scene, the introduction of Kilgrave's parents, the interaction and back and forth between Kilgrave and Jessica. But I would have loved to maybe have seen that take place early next episode or something, to allow that breathing space of that interrogation. But I loved it, so I can't really take too much away from the episode. And I mean, finally, really, I just liked how Hogarth is just a horrendous person. I mean, Kilgrave is a horrendous person, but he's the evil one. Hogarth has no superpowers. She's a lawyer, so maybe we're tainted in our perception of her anyway. But here she is dancing with the devil in the pale moonlight.
Pale purple light?
Pale purple light, yeah. She's considering this alliance, this working with Kilgrave for purely her own ends. And I feel she will go down that route, and I can't wait to see it, actually, because this will have huge ramifications for her, and I just think it might tie in nicely with an Iron Fist element as well in future Marvel Netflix stuff. So that's it. Four Kozlov pills out of 5. Still really high, really good. I think right at the end of it, immediately I felt, I'm not entirely sure whether I got everything there. And again, packed with content and maybe just some slight pacing issues for me. But that's probably not going to be the case for everyone.
Well, there you have it. There are lots of different opinions on this particular episode. Hopefully, next time's episode, 1,000 Cuts, or AKA 1,000 Cuts, will be more on the same page, I suppose, about it. If you have any feedback, just make sure you send it into feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com, or follow us on our Facebook page. Look for Defenders TV Podcast. Come and join the group with lots of discussion going on. Or go over to Twitter and find us at DefendersCast. I think that's it for this week, guys.
Absolutely. And remember, you can get your red, white and blue pills here with us by going to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. Search Defenders TV podcast on any other good podcast catcher, Stitcher, Player FM, Podcast Addict, Beyond Pod. Remember, subscribe to us on iTunes or any Android podcast catcher and listen in. Again, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. We are the Agent Simpsons, or the Operation Simpson. We have our red pill, our blue pill, and I think I'm the upper, the downer. Does that mean I'm just kind of the guy for balancing out? No, I'm the downer. I'm the blue pill. You're the red pill, and that makes you the balancer.
I'm the balancer. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, you're the white pill. So there you have it. We know which pill we are.
Absolutely.
And on that note, adios.
We're going to listen to heavy techno music as we move into the Matrix.
Talk to you next time, and not for the first time, I'm getting a whiskey.
Bye.
Bye.